The first thing people noticed about Ethan Cole wasn't the tailored Italian suit, the platinum watch on his wrist, or the matte black Lamborghini parked outside the headquarters of Cole Global Holdings in downtown Manhattan. It was the black belt slung confidently over his shoulder. At just 23 years old, Ethan wore that belt like a crown. After years of private martial arts coaching, elite MMA gyms, and expensive tournaments, he had convinced himself he was untouchable. His confidence wasn't quiet, it demanded attention. Every room became his stage, and every stranger became another audience waiting to admire him. That afternoon, the rooftop of Cole Global's 48-story headquarters overlooked the Manhattan skyline. The Hudson River shimmered beneath the summer sun, while executives, investors, city officials, decorated police leaders, military veterans, and business partners gathered for the company's annual Leadership and Community Impact Gala. Crystal glasses clinked beneath elegant white tents as a jazz quartet played softly in the background. Television crews interviewed guests about the company's newest public safety initiative, which included funding scholarships for young people interested in law enforcement and community leadership. Uniformed NYPD officers stood near the entrances, providing security alongside private protection teams. Several respected black women from community organizations and public service agencies moved through the crowd, speaking with guests about youth mentorship, neighborhood safety, and educational opportunities. They weren't there for publicity. They were there because they had spent years building stronger communities, where trust mattered more than headlines. I remained where I always preferred to be, near the edge of the gathering, invisible. My black suit blended into the crowd of security personnel. To everyone attending the gala, I was simply the Billionaire's driver, the quiet employee who opened doors, coordinated transportation, and stayed out of photographs. That assumption had followed me for years, and I had learned to let people believe exactly what they wanted. Real professionals don't chase recognition. They earn peace by avoiding unnecessary attention. Across the rooftop, Ethan finished demonstrating a series of martial arts techniques for a group of young executives who applauded every movement. His father, Richard Cole, laughed proudly, while guests complimented his son's discipline and athleticism. Then Ethan's eyes found me. A confident smile slowly spread across his face. "There he is," he announced loudly, raising his voice just enough to draw attention without shouting. Conversations began to fade. Heads turned the quiet driver. Dozens of guests looked toward me. Some smiled politely, others laughed. Before they even understood why, Ethan stepped forward with effortless confidence, enjoying every second of the attention gathering around him. "You know," he said, glancing at his friends, "I've been watching this guy for months." He pointed directly at me. "He walks around like he's some kind of action hero." Laughter rippled through the rooftop. "I bet $50,000, Ethan continued, lifting his glass, "that I can put him on the ground in under 30 seconds. A louder wave of laughter followed. Several smartphones immediately appeared. People sensed entertainment, not justice, not humiliation, entertainment. Richard Cole took a slow sip of his drink, wearing the amused expression of a father convinced his son's confidence was harmless. Around them stood successful men and women who negotiated billion-dollar deals every week. Yet many were already anticipating the spectacle of watching a wealthy or embarrass an older employee. Only a handful of people looked uncomfortable. Among them was a distinguished black woman wearing the uniform of a senior police commander. Years spent serving communities across New York had taught her to recognize something most people overlooked. Truly dangerous people rarely advertise themselves. They rarely raise their voices. They almost never seek applause. Her eyes settled on me for only a moment before returning to Ethan. She didn't laugh. Neither did the veteran homicide detective standing beside her. Experience had taught them both the same lesson. The calmest person in the room is often the one with the fewest reasons to prove anything. Ethan mistook my silence for fear. He walked closer, stopping only a few feet away. "You've got broad shoulders," he said with a grin. "Maybe you've watched a few action movies. Maybe you even think you know how to fight." The crowd leaned in. Camera phones rose higher. No one noticed. My breathing remained perfectly steady. No one noticed. My hands stayed relaxed. No one noticed my eyes quietly scanning exits. Distances and every person within reach, out of habit rather than intention. Those habits weren't learned inside a gym. They had been earned during 14 years, leading Navy SEAL operators through missions where bringing every teammate home mattered more than personal pride. I looked at Ethan without anger, without fear, without the slightest desire to embarrass him. Because experience teaches something arrogance never can. The strongest people don't measure themselves by the opponents they defeat. They measure themselves by the conflicts they prevent. 5 years earlier, people didn't know me as the quiet man who drove a billionaire's armored SUV through the crowded streets of New York City. Back then, they knew me as Commander Jack Hayes. For 14 years, I led one of the Navy's most respected special operations teams. Every mission carried the same unspoken promise: everyone goes home or no one is left behind. Leadership wasn't about rank or medals. It was about making impossible decisions in impossible moments while carrying the lives of other people on your shoulders. The uniform eventually came off. The discipline never did. Civilian life, however, was a battlefield no military course could prepare me for. The transition wasn't glamorous. There were no ceremonies waiting when the mortgage payment arrived. No applause when hospital bills stacked across the kitchen table. No medals for swallowing your pride. I accepted a position working executive protection for Richard Cole, one of the most powerful businessmen on the East Coast. Officially, I was responsible for transportation, logistics, and personal security. Unofficially, most people simply called me the driver. Every morning before sunrise, I inspected the armored SUV from bumper to bumper. Tire pressure, fuel level, emergency medical kit, communications equipment, escape routes for every scheduled destination. Habit doesn't disappear because a paycheck changes. Professionals prepare because preparation saves lives. Richard appreciated reliability. He didn't ask many questions. He only cared that I arrived early, stayed silent, and handled problems before they became headlines. His son was different every morning. Ethan walked through the front entrance, carrying expensive gym bags embroidered with martial arts logos from elite training academies across the country. Designer sneakers, luxury sunglasses, wireless headphones, confidence overflowing from every step. He never called me by my name. Morning driver, that was it. No eye contact, no handshake. No respect, just another piece of furniture standing beside the vehicle. The first few times it happened, members of the household staff glanced toward me with embarrassed expressions. Maria, the housekeeper who had worked for the Cole family for nearly 20 years, quietly apologized one afternoon while folding fresh towels in the service hallway. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes," she whispered. "You don't owe me an apology. He's a good young man underneath. Maybe he just hasn't learned how to see people yet." I smiled politely. Some lessons take longer than others. Maria nodded thoughtfully before returning to work. She reminded me of something I'd learned overseas years ago. Character reveals itself by how someone treats people who can offer them nothing. The chauffeurs, the janitors, the waiters, the housekeepers, the security officers. Real respect isn't reserved for powerful people. It's demonstrated toward everyone. A few weeks later, Richard hosted a charity luncheon honoring first responders from across New York: firefighters, Thames Cruise police officers, community volunteers. The ballroom filled with uniforms, representing decades of public service. Among the honored guests was Deputy Police Commissioner Angela Brooks, a highly respected black woman whose leadership had transformed relationships between officers in several underserved neighborhoods throughout the city. She wasn't famous because she sought cameras. She earned respect because she listened before she spoke. Families trusted her. Young officers admired her. Community leaders welcomed her into neighborhoods where trust had once been impossible. When she arrived, I opened the vehicle door as always. Instead of walking past me, she paused. "Good afternoon." Her voice carried warmth without pretense. "Thank you for your service." I blinked my service. She smiled, the way you scan every rooftop before opening a vehicle door. "Tells me military." I laughed quietly. Old habits. The best ones usually are. She extended her hand. Angela Brooks. "Jack Hayes, it's an honor to meet you, Jack." It lasted less than 30 seconds. Yet Ethan watched the entire exchange from the front entrance. Confusion crossed his face. He couldn't understand why one of New York's highest-ranking police leaders greeted the driver. With genuine respect, people noticed titles. Professionals noticed discipline. That afternoon, while executives filled the ballroom, Deputy Commissioner Brooks delivered a speech that left the room unusually quiet. She spoke about courage. Not the courage seen on television. The quieter kind, the strongest people I know. She said, aren't the loudest people in the room. They're the ones who protect strangers without expecting recognition. They're the officers who miss birthdays because someone else's family needs them. They're the parents working 2 jobs so their children can dream bigger than they ever could. They're the veterans who return home carrying invisible wounds but still choose kindness instead of bitterness. And they're the everyday workers most people overlook until the day they become the reason someone survives. The applause lasted nearly a full minute. Standing beside the entrance, I remained motionless, not because her words embarrassed me, because they reminded me why I refused to let pride dictate my actions. Every paycheck from Richard Cole's company had a destination before it reached my account. Boston Children's Heart Institute. My daughter Lily was only 9 years old. She had been born with a rare, congenital heart condition that required years of surgery, specialized rehabilitation and medications. Insurance only partially covered. Every specialist had the same message. Her prognosis was improving. Her future depended on continuing treatment. Every missed payment meant delayed care. Every delayed procedure carried consequences. Whenever Ethan mocked me, I pictured Lily smile instead of his arrogance. Whenever someone laughed because I was just the driver. I remembered the hospital bracelet around my daughter's tiny wrist. Pride couldn't pay medical bills. Anger couldn't heal a child's heart. Discipline could. The following Monday, I picked Lily up for our scheduled afternoon together. She climbed into the passenger seat, wearing a backpack almost bigger than she was. You still drive fancy people around. I do, she smiled. Mom says you're protecting them. I try. She looked at me with innocent curiosity. Are they nice to you? Children have a remarkable ability to ask questions. Adults avoid. Some are, and the others I treat them with kindness anyway. Even if they don't deserve it. I glanced at her, especially then. She thought about that for several blocks before speaking again. My teacher says kindness makes people stronger. Your teacher is very smart. She grinned proudly. I told her my dad was the strongest person I know. I laughed softly. You've never seen me carry all the grocery bags at once. I don't mean muscles. She reached across the center console and gently squeezed my hand. I mean your heart. Those simple words carried more weight than every military commendation. Hanging in storage boxes inside my garage. Later that evening, after dropping Lily back home, I returned to the Cole estate. Just as Ethan finished another private training session, his expensive gloves rested over one shoulder. Sweat soaked through his athletic shirt. He spotted me walking toward the security office and smirked. Still driving people around, driver? I stopped, turned toward him calmly. Yes. He bounced lightly on his feet. You ever think about learning to fight? I looked at him for a long moment before answering. Every single day, he laughed, completely misunderstanding the meaning behind my words. The charity gala had already raised millions of dollars for youth programs, first responders, and veterans by the time the evening reached its final event. The ballroom overlooked the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, its polished marble floors reflecting crystal chandeliers that filled the room with warm golden light. Nearly every influential guest in attendance had gathered around a professional demonstration cage placed in the center of the hall. Wall Street executives stood shoulder to shoulder with decorated military veterans, city leaders, philanthropists, and senior law enforcement officials. Television cameras continued recording highlights from the evening, while guests shared videos across social media. Ethan Cole loved every second of the attention. He had already demonstrated several impressive martial arts techniques with instructors from his private academy. Every successful throw earned louder applause. Every submission brought another round of cheers from his friends. His confidence grew with every passing minute. Then he grabbed the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced with a grin, I've been looking for one more opponent tonight. The room grew quiet. He slowly turned toward the back of the ballroom. His finger pointed directly at me. My dad's driver laughter echoed across the room. Several guests immediately reached for their phones. Richard Cole smiled awkwardly before looking in my direction. Jack, he called. Come on over. I walked calmly across the ballroom, ignoring the whispers that followed me. People weren't looking at me. They were looking at what they believed would become entertainment. As I stopped beside Richard, Ethan stepped closer with a confident smile. "You've spent months acting like the strong, silent type," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Tonight, let's find out if it's real." Richard chuckled. "It'll be good fun. No one gets hurt." Several executives nodded in agreement. To them, it was simply another wealthy family's harmless spectacle. Only a few people remained completely silent. Deputy Police Commissioner Angela Brooks exchanged a brief glance with Captain Denise Carter, one of the NYPD's most respected black women commanding officers. Years of experience had taught both leaders that public humiliation rarely ended the way spectators expected. Angela stepped forward politely. "Mr. Cole," she said, "there are many ways to entertain a crowd without encouraging someone to prove themselves through violence." Her words were calm, professional, respectful. Richard hesitated before he could answer. Ethan laughed. "It's just friendly competition, Commissioner. No disrespect intended." Angela looked directly at Ethan. "The strongest professionals I've worked with never needed an audience to prove their strength." The room became noticeably quieter. I appreciated her words, not because I needed anyone to defend me, but because true leaders know when to lower the temperature. Instead of raising it, Ethan climbed inside the demonstration cage anyway. He bounced confidently on the balls of his feet, before looking straight at me. "What are you waiting for?" the crowd began chanting. "Driver. Driver, driver." I slowly removed my suit jacket, folded it neatly, placed it over the back of a nearby chair. Then I loosened my tie and rolled my sleeves just below my elbows. No dramatic expressions, no trash talk, no anger, only calm. Years earlier, my instructors taught me something far more valuable than combat. The moment your emotions control your decisions, your opponent already owns you. I stepped toward the cage. Every eye followed, even the cameras stopped moving. The room had transformed from celebration to complete silence. Ethan smiled confidently. "I'll go easy on you." I met his eyes. "I hope one day you understand that strength isn't measured by who you can defeat. It's measured by who you choose not to hurt." For the first time all evening, his smile faded. Some lessons can't be taught inside expensive gyms. Some lessons are earned through humility. Others arrive when life introduces you to someone who has nothing left to prove. The atmosphere inside the ballroom shifted completely. The laughter disappeared. The excitement turned into anticipation. Even those recording with their phones lowered them slightly. This moment had become about something much bigger than a fight. It had become a lesson about character, about discipline, about respect, about the quiet confidence carried by people who have already survived battles no one else in the room could imagine. And sometimes the most powerful person in the room isn't the billionaire. It isn't the champion. It isn't the loudest voice demanding attention. Sometimes it's the quiet professional standing beside the exit, protecting everyone without asking for recognition. That truth is what real heroes, great police officers, dedicated veterans, and remarkable community leaders, including women who wear the badge with courage every single day, understand better than anyone else. Their strength is measured by the lives they protect, not the applause they receive. Before the first move was ever made, the room had already learned its most important lesson. If this story made you think about the difference between confidence and character, I genuinely love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think truly showed strength in this moment? Jack, Ethan, or Commissioner Angela Brooks? Share your answer in the comments because I read them all. And one more question for you. What kind of justice story would you like to watch next? A powerful police story, a hidden military hero, a courageous black woman who changes everyone's lives, or an emotional courtroom revenge story? Your comments help shape the next story on this channel.